Hi, I'm back. I want to first get a little personal and take you into my mind a little bit to understand why I just felt like explaining why I sometimes like have a burst of videos, things that I want to talk about, and then I go quiet. And because I was for a while confused by it myself, and I've been working to figure out like what's going on here. And at the end of the day, excuses aside, what I came to realize is that even though in like one-on-one conversations or group conversations, I've always had an easy time communicating my ideas. I don't really have to think. It's just like comes on the fly. And I do, like in a Q&A after a course, which is all spontaneous, one-on-one coaching, group coaching. I do all of it, and it's very easy for me to communicate ideas spontaneously with whatever topic is coming up in the moment. But for some reason, which really confused me, when a camera is put in front of my face, or if it's not like a group situation, like Q&A for a class or group coaching, something like that, but it's more distant, like public speaking. I've done that sometimes as well. For some reason, I have to be so prepared to communicate anything. And it takes a lot of energy. It's exhausting. And I eventually just kind of burn out and I don't want to do it. Like, who wants to do something unless there's like a real reason? Unless there's a real reason to do something, who wants to do something that's just takes so much energy? And the question that I had was like, that I was struggling with is like, why is this so draining for me to talk in front of a camera versus other situations where I can communicate with so much ease? And what I something that I'm playing with now, or like kind of an insight that has come up, is that there's a disconnect when you're, let's say, not necessarily on a stage, but let's say in a public speaking, theoretically a stage where you're standing up and there's like an audience, there's a disconnect. When there's a camera put in front of a face, then there's a disconnect with other humans, like there's not this real connection. And when there's a disconnect, that's when I find it hard to speak, and it becomes very exhausting to kind of put together my thoughts coherently. And I realized that is why or at least one of the reasons why I avoid it. And so what I kind of made a shift is that when it comes to, let's say, creating content like this, to not, usually my intention when speaking is like, or maybe not actually, I'm not even sure, but there's somewhere in there is this intention of like the other person. What does the other person want to hear? What are they struggling with? What are their pain points? And the speaking is like a form of giving, right? But when there's a disconnect, when there's just a camera and that doesn't work. And so what was suggested to me and what really resonated was when the camera's in front of me and not another human being, to focus on myself, to connect with myself about what am I passionate to share, what brings me joy, what lights me up to share. And I thought about the topics that I've been covering recently, particularly within marriage. And when I think about it, I'm like, yes, that really does bring me joy to talk about. It does really light me up. And I can connect with myself when speaking those ideas. And so what is it? And I just want, again, just here making this more personal, like, what is this? What is it that I really enjoy? And what I love is exposing things that most people don't like to look at and talk about within marriage, which is that not for all marriages. And, like if anything I'm saying doesn't apply to you, shkayach, does not meant to apply to everybody. But for a lot of marriages, there's a lot of manipulation happening. And we call it different things. And it brings me joy to expose it, because it brings me joy to empower women. And why does it bring me joy to empower women? Because that is clearly my medicine in this lifetime, my medicine to the world. And so what do I mean that there's a lot of manipulation? And it's not intentional. Like, I'm not demonizing anybody here. Most of what people do is not intentional. Most of what people do is like operating from like just subconscious programming, right? Unless someone is evil, no one's hurting other people intentionally. But what happens is that women fall into roles in their marriage. Very often they fall into roles and they get stuck in those roles, and they're expected to stay in those roles without, like, never with their conscious consent. Like, they just fall into these patterns, into these roles of keeping everything together, holding up the relationship, holding the marriage together, holding the family together, like the responsibilities of running a home, taking care of the children, making sure that there's connection and relationship happening in the marriage. So many things, examples that I'm not even thinking about. Somehow it falls on the woman. I'm going to pause actually here, make part two. This is getting long.